ball club has been amazing all season long.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the show on an overcast and rainy afternoon in the fighting city of Flint, Michigan. It is episode number 31 of Swinging for the Fences, and of course, we're still without Swanee. He is on the, feels like he's going to be on the 30-day DL, but he will be back. This isn't, this isn't any cause for concern. He is dealing with his own personal things, but, Swanee will be back. So your Seattle Mariners went 6-1 this last week, taking 3 of 4 from the Houston Astros, sweeping the shit out of the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim of Disneyland Angels in 3 straight. And then, of course, last night, the Mariners handled their business down in the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum, Oracle Park, whatever the hell they're calling it these days. And the Mariners have won 8 of 9, including 4 in a row. And right now they're finding ways to win. Last night, it was manufacturing the 4 runs the good old-fashioned way, a couple of doubles. And they were, and their pitching, of course, is good enough to hold on. And that was with George Kirby only going 5. So the bullpen had to cover 4. But not bad. Not bad at all. I want to begin today because there was some interesting news that happened this week. And of course, if you've checked out Twitter, and of course, if you want to talk baseball with me, no doubt about it, hit me up on Twitter at SwingingPod. But there was some news that was released, and every Mariner fan understands that. It was John Stanton coming out public talking about resources being available for the July 30th or August 1st trading deadline. And I think there was a lot of skepticism met with that because, it's John Stanton. I think every Mariner fan kind of takes everything he says with a grain of salt, but we're going to get into that in just a second. Before we get into it, I think it's important to understand that the Mariner offense this week, despite the fact that it went 6-1, was up and down. In the Houston series, which began on Monday the 27th, they score 3 runs in a win. And, of course, they hold on. Munoz picks up the save. The next day, they win 4-2. And then, of course, they score 2 runs in games 3, but they win in a walk-off. Okay? So, 9 runs right there. And, of course, they get shut out in game 4. But then, all of a sudden, the offense picks up 5 runs in game 1. 9 runs in game 2, and of course 5 runs in game 3 in a 3-game sweep. Last night was 4 runs, and the Mariners 29 runs on the week on 48 hits, which equals out to about 4 runs a game on 6.8 hits per game. Which I guess when you take a look at everything as a whole, I'm sure every fan is like, 4 runs is good enough to win ball games. And I think you're probably right. But when you look at runners in scoring position, the Mariners were 15 for 66 with runners in scoring position throughout the week, which basically means, I think they're operating at about a 22% clip. So they're still not doing enough with runners in scoring position. And of course, if you're charting some of your favorite players, Julio Rodriguez, who has in clips, Julio Rodriguez, a.k.a. the best player in the Mariner lineup, this week went 8 for 26 with 4 RBI and 1 stolen base. So there were games this week. I think he had a 2 for 4 game on the Tuesday night win versus the Astros where he produced 2 RBI. And then in the 9-run output versus the Angels, he was 3 for 4. So he only had 2 multi-hit games. He actually had 2 games this week where he went 0 for 3. Still, not enough. Not enough. This is going to be a pivotal month for Julio because as we mentioned last week, even if you're just looking at basic splits, first half versus second half, you see key players all the way up and down this lineup that really kind of start heating up in the month of June before really picking it up in July and August. which would lead anyone to look at this lineup and think, okay, well, this is the second half team. And we know that. 2021, 2022, 2023, this team performs exceptionally well in July and August, and generally speaking is pretty decent in September, albeit not last September, as the Mariners choked away last September. But J.P. Crawford, 5 for 27. And I thought J.P. Crawford has looked good since his return from the DL. And it's going to be pivotal that J.P. Crawford gets his shit together in the month of June as we prepare for July, because this is going to be pivotal. This week, 5 for 27, 1 home run. Of course, it was the grand slam, 4 doubles, 5 RBIs. Not bad. At least you got 5 extra base hits, a couple, 5 RBIs. And of course, Luke Raley, who I think, for me at least, was the best player this last week. 5 for 20, 2 home runs, 2 doubles, 4 RBI, and a stolen base to boot. And Luke Raley, of course, statistically speaking, is the best Mariner in the lineup right now. All right, so, and by the way, the Mariner rotation was absolutely phenomenal this last week. Luis Castillo had 2 quality starts, including a 7-inning quality start, 1 against the Angels, 1 against the Astros. George Kirby had a quality start against the Astros, actually a really phenomenal start against the Astros, and left, of course, last night, a 5-inning affair. He wasn't great. He also wasn't terrible. He was somewhere in the middle against the A's last night. The only Brian Wu had a quality start in a 6-inning effort. And same thing with Bryce Miller, the only Mariner starter who didn't exactly have the greatest go-around this from the rotation was Logan Gilbert. Gave up 4 runs on 8 hits in his 1 start of the week. But bullpen was actually quite phenomenal, given their limitations as well, too. All right, let's get into the reason why we're here today. And, of course, it was Mariner owner John Stanton came out this week and said that resources will be available for the summer trading deadline. As a matter of fact, he goes on to say, I look at the talent that we have, that we got on the offensive side, and I think we got the ability to hit. Stanton, who acknowledged substantial financial losses surrounding the future of Root Sports, which is owned by the Mariners. That said, we will look at the July 30th Major League Baseball trading deadline. I'll spend time with the president of baseball operations, Jerry Dipoto, and general manager Justin Hollander as we approach the deadline, and we'll talk about where we are. Jerry and Justin are 10 times smarter about what it takes to have a successful baseball team. My job is to make sure that they have the resources available to get there. And I get up every day to try and do that. Okay. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that John Stanton is the king of saying things without saying anything really at all. He says that we're going to try to have the resources. I mean, let's say what it is, right? So my job is to make sure they have the resources available. Okay, that's not necessarily saying that the resources will be there. He's saying that he is going to try. Now, the question is how hard is he going to try? Is this going to be a situation where we saw in 2021, where the Mariners were at 56-49, 7 games above 500, 2.5 games back in the wild card, and Dipoto, makes basically a morale depleting move by trading Kendall Graveman to the Astros. Last year, Seattle was 55-51, 3.5 games back in the wild card, still within striking distance. Yeah, they weren't firing on all cylinders at that point, but of course he sells off Paul Sewald to the Diamondbacks, which also coincidentally gave them their final piece for their run to the World Series. The let's also remember 2018, where Seattle was 63-44 and had a 1-game lead over Oakland for the final wild card, and the additions were aging outfielder Cameron Maben and Denard Span. I think they brought in Zach Duke, Adam Warren, if I remember correctly, and of course they collapsed down the stretch and then finished 8 games behind Oakland. The only such case was in 2022 where Dipoto swung for the fences to get Luis Castillo, and I believe at the time the Mariners were 55-48 with a 1.5 game lead at the wild card, and they went 35-24 the rest of the way. So the question really is going to be: is this legit or is this lip service? And I think we're at this point where it kind of has to be legit, because I think Mariner fans understand what the program is with ownership. For guys that had been around forever, and of course I'm one of those guys that has seen Mariner ownership since the beginning of the Nintendo regime back in 1992, and their transition from Kingdome to Safeco Field, and what they were able to do to maximize profits versus keeping a competitive team on the field. If you remember back in 95 when the Mariners made that historical run, erasing their 12-game lead, 12-game deficit to the Angels that year, that was a pretty phenomenal team. And in the offseason, they kept away Tino Martinez because they just Tino Martinez was coming into his walk year, and they just decided that they weren't going to pay him, and they jettisoned it. And of course, in the 2021 season, rumor had it that Gillick had saved some money from the offseason specifically to put himself in a position come the deadline wherever they were, where they were going to be able to add that right-handed bat, which he knew they had lost with A-Rod going to Texas. And come the deadline, word is ownership put the brakes on Gillick, and of course he put the brakes on him pretty much every single year of his tenure when it came to the deadline. So, it's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to do it. And I would probably think being where the Mariners are mysteriously in first place, considering that, this offense is easily one of the worst. Seriously. When you look at what they brought in, Polanco, who's currently sitting on the IL, batting at $195 with the 293 OBP. I think he's only slugging 302. Mitch Haniger, who they brought back with a negative .7 WAR, 221, 282, 349. Mitch Garver's only hitting a $170. Luis Urias is in AAA, who is only hitting a $152 with a 264 OBP. And Zebi Zavala, who now is basically persona non grata when it comes to playing time. As a matter of fact, they're giving Mitch Garver run behind the plate, which is risky as itself, considering that the last, one of the biggest things that they wanted to do was, avoid the wear and tear. And now all of a sudden, you see Mitch Garver getting run behind the plate. So, it's, you look at this team and you just see where the holes are. And, the question is, okay, I understand that Root Sports has taken a massive blow. I understand that. But that being said, for anybody who doesn't think that the Mariners aren't printing money, I'm sorry to say it, that's kind of a foolish thing to think. When you look at this baseball team and you see that they have no competition anywhere. The nearest Major League Baseball competition this team has is what south of the Bay Area with the Giants and the A's, and as far east as the Colorado Rockies or the Minnesota Twins. I mean, they have a territory all by themselves, and it's a territory that has a lot of reach. This team has very good sponsorship revenue, very, very, very good sponsorship revenue. And if you're wondering, and if you know, just look at the extensions that they were able to hand out. I mean, they went out and got Robbie Ray and signed him to a 9-figure deal. They gave Julio goddamn near $500 million as an extension. Of course, a lot of that is performance based. But that being said, it's a large extension. They gave Castillo a large extension as well too. This team has money. It's the issue of it's the issue of comfortability versus being uncomfortable. The issue isn't money. The issue is Jerry Dipoto, who has put it out there a few times that he does not believe in handing out massive extensions for position players. Pitching is something different. Pitching, this franchise is built on pitching. When you look at the resources and the draft capital this team has spent in his 9 years in control, where have they spent it? Pitching. You can't compete for 81 games at T-Mobile Park and not have the ability to pitch. 100%. That was the blueprint of Pat Gillick. In the 4 years that Gillick was here, what did the Mariners do? Phenomenally. They pitched. A lot of that was veteran leadership. A little bit different this go around, considering that 4/5 of the rotation is still within their first 6 years of experience. But that being said, this team pitches phenomenally. They also, prior to this year, they also played phenomenal defense as well too. This year it's gotten better, but it's nowhere near where you'd like to see it. But that being said, pitching and defense, playing 81 games at T-Mobile Park, that's where it has to start. But that being said, when you look at this offense and week to week, this isn't anything new. Week to week, when you look at what this team does with runners in scoring position, last night was good. Last night, you love to see it. You get a couple doubles that drove in runs. They were able to cash in with runners in scoring position. Granted they were 4 for 12, but still. But when you look at what this team does week to week, it's their success rate is not good. So it begs the question: if the resources are going to be there, is it going to be substantial? Like I'll put it this way: where the Mariners' payroll sits right now, it's $100 million below where the Houston Astros are. And you can say all you want about the start that Houston got off to, but as soon as the Astros get 95% healthy, that is a team that knows how to win, and you can never ever ever count that baseball team out. They do a lot of things right. Being healthy right now isn't necessarily one of them, but they will be healthy. And same with the Texas Rangers, defending World Series champion. Right now, health is an issue for them. But again, they'll get healthy and they'll start to put things together. And then come August and September, this thing is going to be a 3-horse race. So it's indicative of the Mariners to take advantage of what they have right now. When you look at the standings, the Mariners currently have a 5.5 game lead over Texas. That is a very big lead. It's a very big lead. And June is such a huge month for this baseball team. This is the swing month. This is where everything springboards to the second half. And when you look at what this team did in 2021, 2022, you can see that they had very good months of June. Not necessarily last year, but that's all right. They were able to kind of play 500 ball in June and before they turn things on in July. But this is kind of a big month. This month is going to be telling of what they do come July. And this isn't about, going big game hunting. I see on Mariners social media, and I keep seeing Vlad Jr.'s name getting thrown out there, and I'm like, no. That's not big game hunting the right way. When you look at a guy like Vlad Jr., who from his 2021, that season was an all-timer. I think he had 48 home runs. Had a crazy, it was one of the greatest seasons over the course of the last 15 years. As we pulled up real quick. Yeah, 2021, 48 home runs, 111 runs batted in. I think he also checked in with 29 doubles, hit 311 with a 401 OBP, and he slugged 601, had an OPS of 1.002 and an OPS plus of 167. Finished second in the MVP. And then in 2022, he hit 274 with a 339 OBP, slugged 480 with an 818 OPS, good for an OPS plus of 133. Finished 16th in the MVP. And then you go to last year. Hit 264, a 345 OBP, slugged 444 with a 788 OPS for an OPS plus of 117. 26 home runs, 94 RBI. This year, he's hitting 296 with a 389 OBP, slugging 417, so it's up a little bit with an OPS of 806. But he's only has 6 home runs, 27 RBI, so he's steadily has progressed down from that 2021 season that vaulted him into superstar. That's not necessarily the dude that you want to bring to T-Mobile Park. Because, how are you going to deploy a dude like that and then take on the money? Are you if he's struggling to hit in Toronto right now, what makes you think that all of a sudden that's going to turn around in a place like T-Mobile Park with the offense that's currently constructed? Do you really think that he'll just turn it on like that, considering everything that we know? And this year, and of course, I think he's got a year and a half left. Yeah, before he hits free agency. This year it's $19 million. Next year, it's going to go up. Next year, it's probably going to be 25 to 30. Are you willing to trade big name prospects? Now, mind you, I'm okay with trading prospects for the right player. I'm okay with that. For the right player. Are you okay with trading Nemo? You're talking about 3 top 5 prospects and maybe somebody off the 26-man roster for a dude that's steadily gotten worse over the course of the last 2 years. That's not big game hunting to me. Now, the guy that I would like is the guy who's athletic, who plays in Toronto, who's very athletic and can play at second and third as well, too. Or if you want to, you can move JP off a short, and that's, of course, Bo Bichette. That would be something that's very intriguing. Bo, by the way, also has a year and a half left, and I know that he's struggled this year. There's no way around that. This year has been a little bit of a struggle. But typically speaking, you're getting a dude that's probably going to hit somewhere in the 290 range with a 330 OBP. He's going to slug in the 450 range, maybe 460 range with an OPS over 800. And his OPS plus is going to be somewhere right around $1.20. He's going to be a top 15 MVP guy, and he's going to be an all-star, and he's a 20 to 25 home run guy, and he's probably going to hit about 85 to 100 RBI, somewhere in that gap. And I understand that this year it's been a struggle. There's no way around it. I mean, he's only hitting 238, 288 OBP, slugging 345 with an OPS under 700, 633. It's not good. It's not good, but that's good for Seattle because it's actually a negotiating plus for the Mariners because you're taking on a guy who is struggling. But that being said, the dude is versatile. The dude can hit the fastball. That's something that the Mariners still are struggling with is consistent fastball connection. But the other name on Toronto that I like is also Dalton Varsho. And that's something that the Mariners also need. He can play both corner outfield positions. And, listen, I don't like the fact that Mitch Haniger is playing every single day. I love Mitch. I think everybody knows that I have a solid bromance with Mitch Haniger. Mitch Haniger is my guy. I like the guy too personally. I think he's a really cool guy. But he's 33 years old, and I think that he is past his prime. I hate to say it. I think, when you're talking about is there any tread left on the tire, I think the injuries have played a big role. Now, granted, he's healthy this year, but I think that production-wise, I think a lot of things have taken its toll off his high of 2021. There's been a steady regression as well, too. And, this was never supposed to be the way that the Mariners were going to deploy him. But that being said, he hit a home run on opening day. And, the Mariners just said, hey, let's just throw him out there. He was supposed to be that guy versus left-handed pitching. And then, of course, there was some injury issues. And then, of course, they didn't, for whatever reason, they were only playing Luke Raley once a week. We'll give him one at-bat for the first 4 weeks of the season for some odd reason because, he didn't necessarily have the greatest spring, but who cares? You know what I mean? Like the only way you're going to get sharper is by, facing live pitchers. But now you got Canzone and you have Raley, who's actually hitting quite well right now. And the question remains is, why isn't he DHing a little bit more? I would like to see them, deploy the team as it was actually originally built to play. But that being said, bringing in a guy like Dalton Varsho makes a tremendous amount of sense with me. And it would bring in, again, another guy who crushes the fastball. Very good eye at the plate, gets on base. That would be also be a steady improvement. But that being said, the question you have to ask yourself is this about bringing on payroll as it is more about getting, being able to trade some of these young prospects? I know there was, there was a huge discussion online about whether or not it's worth it to trade a Johnny Formello or a Lazaro Montez or Ty, the first baseman in Double-A. His last name. Anyway, you knew who I'm talking about. Is it worth it? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Well, in a lot of cases, absolutely. And I always look at this, or, a Harry Ford, or, I look at this like, what is your ultimate goal? Because the one thing that the Mariners do incredibly well is draft. You look at Jerry's last 6 drafts, and they're phenomenal. Especially their scouting in Latin America. Their international free agent signings have been, phenomenal. Felix Celeste, Julio Rodriguez. I mean, This team does a very good job in Latin America. They do a very good job in the draft, and their development is very good. So, the idea that you wouldn't want to bring in a rent a player because of the cost of doing business. Well, what is your priority? Is it winning a World Series? Because one of the things that always gets said, and of course Jerry said this, I believe last year in the 54% press conference, was that he didn't want to sell out for one World Series championship and then be in a process where you're rebuilding for another 4 years. Well, that's not the case. That's not reality. Because if you have a major league team that wins a World Series or gets to a World Series, chances are pretty good the core of that roster will probably be around 2 years later. And that's true. You look at Julio, he's under contract. Cal's under contract, his rookie deal still has 3 more years. Same thing with, Logan, same thing with Cal, with George. A lot of these guys, are still a ways away from free agency. So it's not like you're going to be, taking away the core of your team. Let's go to the comment section. This is from a Walter Gilbert superfan. We are not a Houston market type team. When it comes to our payroll and what we spend, Root Sports plays a huge part in the loss of money by the team, and no one ever seems to take that into consideration. We need to spend. So you don't want somebody that is putting up those numbers that you just stated this season. Well, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I don't think one has anything to do with the other. I'm sorry, man. I think we're a better market than Houston. I think the payroll restrictions have nothing to do with environmental. Because if that was the case, I would understand it if we weren't drawing, 2.5 million fans a season. If we were drawing Oakland numbers, yeah, you probably might have a point. But let's understand that this team makes money. This team literally prints money. It could, if it really wanted to, it could have signed Shohei Ohtani or Aaron Judge. It could have traded for Juan Soto this offseason and inherited his $35 million contract. They could have done it easily. I don't think that Root Sports has anything to do with the Mariners when it comes to payroll. I just don't. I think it's its own separate entity, and I think it's ran as a separate business. That's not under the baseball umbrella. That was, as far as Root Sports concerned, that was, bad business. Not understanding, you're not understanding, the way the wind was blowing when it came to cable TV. And by the way, the Root Sports can operate in the red, and the Mariners are still going to be incredibly profitable. Like literally, they could bankrupt Root Sports tomorrow, and still be able to figure out a way to stream on their own website, and still be able to sell advertising for it. It's not the end of the world. If that's not going to play a role in whether or not the Mariners are going to spend or not. Now he says that John Stanton will bring up Root Sports. But that's just covering your ass in case it doesn't happen. Oh well, Root Sport. No. Like John Stanton's putting it out there because he's not a dummy. Like he's hedging his bets. It's funny to me, but yeah, no. The two are operated independently, and one hand has nothing to do with the other. But I appreciate it. For me, I look at this from a pragmatic point of view. I look at what the Mariners like, and I look at what the Mariners are looking for. They like club control. A guy like Lars Nootbaar from the Cardinals, a guy who's got club control. who's a very good player. That's probably going to be something that they're going to be shooting for. Maybe even Eloy Jimenez with the White Sox, Jazz Chisholm from the Marlins, or maybe they do something crazy like getting the Pirates involved, or a 3-team deal, something that something creative. But you look at this team and you look at both corner outfield positions as a need of upgrade. You look at third base as a need of upgrade. I don't give a shit what Josh Rojas is doing. I know he had a good couple weeks there in May, but that being said, it's you can always look for improvement. Same thing with first base, man. Let's not kid ourselves. They're not getting 2021, 2022 Ty France production. They're not getting the value at first base right now. So, I mean, I look at 4 positions on the diamond that could definitely use an upgrade. And, of course, a bullpen that also needs another high leverage arm. You're looking at 5 positions. And if they can upgrade 3, maybe get another outfield. I know they just brought in what's his ass? Victor Robles, who is going to be a DFA candidate at some point this season. They brought him in for depth, but that being said, at one point was a very good prospect, and then he got to the majors, had 500 games at the major league level, and ended up being a light hitting, high strikeout disappointment. That dude is not going to be around that long. So, of course, backup catcher as well too. Zebby Zavala became, basically persona non grata because he absolutely gives no value. So there is ample room to improve on this team. So the question is what, like, can you attribute a dollar amount to the upgrades? Are we talking like 20 million? Because if that's the case, if you're looking at like 20 to 25, you're not bringing in a big name. You're going to be trading very good high prospects for guys that are, 25 to 27, somewhere in that age range. So you're looking at most likely guys that are mid to high arbitration eligibility that still have maybe a year or two before they hit free agency, which is fine as long as they're productive. If we're talking like $40 million or even 50, then we can start talking about big names, guys like, would you trade 3 of your top 5 prospects for a guy like Pete Alonso to make a run, to make a legit run? I have not been a big proponent of that idea, but that being said, if you told me that come the deadline, we ended up with a guy like Tanner Scott in our bullpen and maybe Dalton Varsho and Pete Alonso, and that was our deadline. And yeah, we moved some top prospects, but you added those 2 to the lineup plus that dude in the bullpen, I would be fucking over the moon. That would be the shit. Or a dude like Eloy Jimenez. Yeah. So we're taking on payroll, and we're actually making a concerted effort to win the division. Yeah. The question the question really is this legit? Is this statement legit versus what we've known from reality of what this team prioritizes? Because I've been consistent the entire time by saying I don't think this team prioritizes winning World Series. I do not think. I've been around since 1987, when I was 6 years old, getting into baseball for the first time, and obviously being from the Seattle area, the Mariners were my team. So I've been around. I've been around for the start of the junior era, the Nintendo ownership era, T-Mobile Park. I've been around, man. And I can tell you from 1992 on, this team has never prioritized winning a championship. even when they were very good. And the proof has always been in the pudding. Go back in history. History will tell you everything you need to know. Students of history can generally predict the future. Because if it's always been one thing, it will always be that same thing, right? What's the definition of insanity? Doing the exact same thing and expecting a different result. That's kind of sums up Seattle Mariners baseball, because they keep doing the same thing and they keep saying, they expect big things. And of course, the exact same shit happens year after year after year. So until it actually happens, fuck, man, it's not legit. When I'll say this, man, when it happened in the off season of 2021 going into 2022, when we signed the reigning AL Cy Young Award winner, and we made that trade with the Reds to get Suarez and Winker, and then we traded for Adam Frazier. That was fucking crazy, because I don't think anybody was really expecting that type of offseason. Coming off of a surprising 90 win season, I don't think anybody was really expecting. Like, I remember thinking to myself, like, holy shit, this is something new. They're actually trying to go for it. And then they doubled down at the deadline. Brought in Luis Castillo. And you're like, oh, shit. Oh. Maybe they do want to win a World Series. And then you get to that offseason, and then you're like, oh. No, they're really not. Because, good teams will double down on that again. And try to bring in that big piece that they think that they're one piece short. Turning to the chat room, East Valley Guy. I like that name, man. East Valley Guy. What valley of the East do you reside in? That's what I want to know. 100% they don't prioritize winning at all. They get a few guys who are the faces, but they don't stack the team. When we didn't go hard after getting past the wild card, that spoke volumes. 100%. 100%. Because, after game one of the divisional series, when Yordan Alvarez hit the dinger that took the wind out of the sails of the Mariners, that was kind of the line of demarcation. Because when you look at that roster, you're like, well, really they're just kind of that one big guy in the middle of their lineup away. And it's like, if anything that you do in that offseason, maybe you add a little bit more bullpen depth, but for the most part, you bring in that one big dude that you can put at 3 in the lineup, that you can, build with Julio, build around with Julio, and then you have that guy Julio and Cal Raleigh in the middle of your lineup. Like, that was the move, and of course they didn't do that. I don't give a shit when anybody says Teoscar Hernandez was not that dude. Like, Teoscar was nice, but there had to have been another corresponding move, and that didn't happen. And we saw what happened. This year it was interesting, man. I thought Polanco and Garver were nice, solid corresponding moves, but that one big move that is going to make Jerry Dipoto and Justin Hollander uncomfortable. But that's what winners have to do, is they have to put themselves in a position to be uncomfortable. Like, you're not going to be able to succeed, right? Like, some of the best people in industry, whether it's Elon Musk or whether, like, name Warren Buffett, whoever the fuck. What do they always say? All those guys say, like, the one thing consistently that, they learned from losing. Like, losing was the one thing that they had to go through in order to correct their weaknesses, in order for them to put themselves on that trajectory that they had. And it just doesn't seem like Jerry Dipoto learns from his mistakes. Like, the only one thing that he did that you can praise him was after the Winker debacle, he corrected it, which was, I gave him a lot of respect for that. He recognized it and corrected. He didn't correct it well, but he corrected it. And so when it comes to this, it's like, who out there, is there that one dude that fits with the model of what Dipoto wants? Is it going to be the role player type, the Jorge Polancos and the Mitch Garbers of the world, or is it going to be, the Julio Rodriguez's of the world? Identifying that seller with that really good player, and all, and making that move where, you might be trading some guys that have a future in Seattle in 2026, 2027. It's going to suck to lose them. But for the next 3 years, this team is going to be consistently competing for championships. I think I would trade that 10 times out of 10, without a question. For an opportunity to consistently be in the playoffs for a 5-year stretch, that's all I'm asking. I'm not even asking for a trip to the World Series. I just want to be in the playoffs for like a half a decade. That would be cool, because once you get in, you just never know. Ask Arizona. That shit happens all the time where you have that Cinderella, you peak at the right time, you get into the playoffs, and the next thing you know, you're in game 6 of the World Series. That would be sweet. That would be sweet. And it could happen. The Mariners are sitting in a very, very good position right now, and all it takes is heart. That's what it takes. I think the players this year on the 2024 team have showed a tremendous amount of heart. They are very good in one-run games, which was a characteristic that they had in 2021. Very good in one-run games. And they're doing it with a bullpen that's not the greatest bullpen. Like, I'd rather have the 2021 bullpen, if I'm being perfectly honest. I'd rather take 2022. But they're figuring out a way to do it. They're not out of any game. I know it seems like it, but the Mariners have shown the ability to come back late in games. We saw that in New York. They can do those. They can have those type of wins. So I think the players have done their part to put themselves in this position, and now it is up to John Stanton, the king of saying shit without, saying things without even saying a thing. It's time, it really is time for him to, to put his money where his mouth is. 100%. So we'll see. Well, interesting week ahead for the Seattle Mariners as we take a look at the upcoming schedule here. Yesterday, the Seattle Mariners, of course, won the game 4-3, getting 4 early, and then holding on for dear life as the A's scored 1 in the bottom of the ninth. But still, they held on. Tyler Saucedo came in and picked up the save last night. So game 2 tonight at 6:40 p.m. At 9:40 p.m. Eastern, 6:40 on the West Coast. So they finished up the series with the A's before going to Kansas City for 3, and then coming home against 4 against the White Sox. And generally speaking, this would be an ideal week for the Mariners, but the Kansas City Royals are actually pretty good. Currently sitting in second place at 36-26, 5 games out of the Indians for first place in the Central. And they're, surprisingly have been very good pitching. So this is not going to be a cakewalk week for the Seattle Mariners. Now, if they happen to sweep the A's in Oakland, okay, great. Fair enough. But this is going to be a situation where they're going to have to take 2 out of 3 in Kansas City. They're going to have to keep this momentum. It's one thing to sweep the Angels or the A's, but it's another thing to beat a team like Kansas City, who's going to be directly involved in the playoff push this year. whether it be a division leader or the wild card. So these are the series that matter more than taking advantage of the Angels or the A's. Although those series are important as well too, because you're supposed to win you're supposed to beat those teams. You take advantage of soft portions of your schedule, and you get momentum building. And of course, as you know, they've won 8 out of their last 9, so they are doing just that. But taking 3 out of 4 from Houston was big. Splitting with the Yankees was big. Dropping 2 out of 3 to the Nationals was not, and it's okay to drop 2 out of 3 to Baltimore. You would like to see it go the other way, but you can understand Baltimore's a very good team. But again, those are the teams that you have to play heads up baseball against, and you cannot ill afford to put yourself in a position where you're either losing 2 out of 3 or getting swept. So as far as I'm concerned, if they can take 2 out of 3 in Kansas City to come home before you face 4 against the White Sox, and of course you'd finish this week, 5-1, 6-1 again, that would be ideal, man. Keep the same momentum as you did this last week. Again, they went 6-1 this last week, had phenomenal starting pitching, phenomenal bullpen work, and they were able to piece together offense. Good enough, man. Fair enough. I do believe that you'll probably see another 6-1 or 5-2, which would be a successful week. And I would like to see, I'd like to see Scott Service do right by his lineup, and I'd like to see him put the team on the field as it was intended to back in spring training. I hate to say it, man, but I'd like to see less of Mitch Haniger in right field. I'd like to see Dom Canzone and Luke Raley get the bulk of the time in the outfield, sandwiched around Julio Rodriguez. And of course, for Julio to fucking wake up and be the player that everybody just expects him to be. 8 for 26 through the week is not going to cut it. You can kind of excuse JP Crawford's 5 for 27 just because, he's still working his way back from the injury. But that being said, it can't just be one guy having a good week and everything kind of builds off that. It has to be a group effort. But that being said, my winner for the week is Luke Raley. 5 for 20, 2 home runs, 2 doubles, 4 RBIs, and a stolen base. By far the best player in the lineup right now. Although Luis Castillo had a phenomenal week. I don't. All right, so it's going to be co-winners. I'm sorry, yeah, because Luis Castillo. It's hard to ignore what he did versus the Astros and the Angels. There's a reason why he is the ace of the staff, because he has the ability to make pitches when he absolutely needs to get out of an inning. And of course, if you give him 3 runs, it's a win. So there you go. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank Walter Gilbert Superfan and the East Valley guy in the chat room. It's been fun, man. We'll see you next week. Until then, go M's, and hopefully this time next week we'll have Swanee back, and we'll be talking about another 6-1 week. I want to thank everybody. Take care of yourselves. Have a good week. Go M's.